You're listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
I'll tell you about a real lumberman. One who could clear an acre of wood with one swing of his axe. Oh yes, I'll be talking about Big Paul Bunyan.
Now, Slue-Foot Sue, she rode a catfish down the old Rio Grande, and she rode standing up, holding on with only one hand while she took pot shots at the clouds with her 6-shooter.
Oh, Bill! Well, he lassoed up that Texas twister and he rode it on down the prairie.
And John Henry, who was born with a hammer in his hand, swore that if he could not beat this steam drill, he would die with a hammer in his hand.
Hey everybody, it's Folklore.
Wow! Sit down, kids, you bother me. Welcome everyone to another episode of Folklore. I'm Ben.
I'm Eric.
I'm Jerry.
And we have a special guest here. It's Bailey.
Hi.
Bailey!
Hi, guys.
Now that Jerry
Hello.
has traumatized us.
Yep.
I thought it would go just about like that.
Right before we started recording, Eric's like, hey, Jerry, why don't you do the intro this time? And Jerry just squinting at me. He's like, I can try.
So
Like
so
me.
inspiring. I was moved by his confidence. So
Yeah.
we just
I quit coffee like a month ago or so.
Why?
Man, brave soul.
You just don't like yourself anymore?
Yeah, I thought I'd punish myself.
Just, the Catholics have Lent. I might as well do this.
No. I need all the help get me uppers that I can stand.
Oh,
Yeah,
me
no.
too. Yeah, I need caffeine just to have the energy to fall asleep. Yeah.
So this is a special episode of Call Lore. This is obviously going to be probably, I believe it's Call Talk Net's wrap up for the 4th of July-esque brief interlude that we've done.
Yeah.
The wrap up to our Call Talk Net summer.
Right.
No, we have
Not the summer.
not
Yeah,
the
I
summer,
think there's some
but the
summery
4th of July.
stuff. Yeah, our 4th of July kind of week, I guess, possibly.
It kind of
Yeah.
Palooza.
No. It did end up kind of being a week just where all the things kind of fell.
Yes.
Don't ever do that again, Jerry.
Keep going, Jerry.
But we were trying to figure out how to do something American because it is our birthday weeks, and American Tall Tales just seemed like the right fit.
It did. So we got excited because it's like, we if you are new to us, this is your first episode with us. Usually we're covering Warhammer 40K lore, but we have also branched out into other mythologies and stuff like that for special occasions. And the 4th of July is a special occasion to us here in America.
And
So-
soon before long, it's going to be just basically at our whimsy as well, because
This
we've
is
got
true.
another episode that's different coming up in August. Well, I'm just saying
Teaser.
that if you catch one of our episodes, you have to catch them all. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Keep up.
Yep, there's a bunch of them.
So if you are a regular listener, then you know that this is Bailey's first time on Cult of Lore.
Yes.
And you will have recognized her from Cult Talk's Conspiracy,
Yes.
our sister show.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Where we question everything and all the high strangeness that goes on in
Yeah.
the world. And
They cover some really random
is.
shit.
yeah, and honestly, it's tied together how random it is sometimes, to be honest with you. Like it's crazy.
So apparently they're also doing drugs over there at Cult. Interesting.
Allegedly. That sounds like
Allegedly.
a conspiracy to me.
That does,
It's
yes.
all connected.
or perhaps a tall tale.
Oh my god! But real quick, if you are first time catching up to us, if this is your first time listening to us, and you don't know anything about 40K, Warhammer 40K, I will say this very quickly: it is going to become a fandom that is getting bigger and bigger, and with a show coming out by Henry Cavill, it's only going to get larger. So it is something that you're going to hear more and more of. So the sooner you jump on learning about this, the better. And we have an episode 0, a prelude episode.
Yeah.
That is what is it, like an hour, 2 hours?
The prologue is about 45 minutes.
Oh, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's one of our shorter episodes.
Yeah.
And it gives you like a really, really good overview of 40K. You say, I don't know anything about it. I don't know where to start. Our episode 0, the prelude, is where you would start.
Yep. Covers the broad strokes and just kind of gives you an anchor point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So that is, so if you go, well, I don't know anything about that. Well, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And better sooner than later. So with that, American Tall Tales, any of you guys, Eric, Jerry, you've obviously heard of these guys, but Bailey, you're a little bit on the younger end, and these the Tall Tales, the American Tall Tales did kind of fall out, I feel. Have you heard of any of these before we started?
Oh my gosh. Paul Bunyan was like the only one that I had heard of. Like the ones that we're going to cover today. But Paul Bunyan was really the only one. For a long time, I thought Davy Crockett was a tall tale. But
me too. Honestly, not for a while
So
there. Yeah,
I will say this. So the Tall Tales are actually considered to be, I believe they're called the Big Men stories. Is what their kind of arching title is. And I do believe that Davy Crockett is often counted amongst the Big Men tales because he has stories like he grinned down a bear when he was 3 years old.
right.
Things like that. So I actually, because I saw his name pop up in several lists that were like the Big Men myths. And so I think that's fair.
yeah.
If he's not one of those, a lot of people consider him at bare minimum adjacent.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
He's like
you're
a
not far off.
A frontier legend.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the kind of category of big men is very loose when it comes to whether it's fictional or history. They seem to blend in together. So Davy Crockett definitely does fit the big men storylines. So we'll start off with Pecos Bill. He's probably, Bailey, you've got Slue-Foot Sue. She's probably going to be the furthest removed from real. Pecos Bill is not based on any person that I know. Dog, are you shitting me?
Your knee's like right in her
Jeopardy.
shoulder.
Well,
she can't move.
her
I'm
knee is-
sorry that I can't
her
lift my
shoulder.
knee above the table.
Gypsy.
Oh no.
Oh, this is bad.
It's a
Oh,
gypsy
God.
jam.
Come on, get out of here.
Speaking of like, what? Leave it to Gypsy to. Oh my gosh! Just go through. Come here, baby. Come here. Come here. You're a tall tale. You know that? You're bigger than fucking life.
American
Yes,
legend.
you are.
Okay.
Jesus.
It's a good thing those boots
Stretch
are new.
Ben right up to the ceiling trying to pull all those cords up over Gypsy's head.
I think I pulled a testicle.
That's how legends are born.
Okay. Speaking of legends
There you
being
go.
born, the start of the Pecos Bill myth, it all starts way out in Texas. Bill is just an infant. He doesn't even have a name yet. He's part of a very large family. When his dad decides that somebody has moved 300 miles closer to them, which now means that their territory is too crowded.
Oh.
And now they have to move.
I feel that.
Gotta go.
Yep. I actually sympathize.
I was getting ready to say, you've got to identify with that.
I do. If I could live in an area that was 300 miles removed from people, as long as I could like satellite internet, fuck them.
Yeah. He's often said during our house hunting, nope, I can see the neighbors.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
No.
Can't buy the house. Nope.
Nope. I want land and property. So I definitely sympathize with Bill's dad. But what ended up happening is when they packed up everything and they were on their way out, the kids were arguing so loudly that nobody noticed that little Bill, who was the youngest, had fallen out the back of the wagon.
Oh no.
Oh.
Yep.
His parents didn't realize he was missing until several weeks later and just kind of chalked it up to experience.
Parents of the year right there.
Whoa. Wow.
Win
Wow.
some, you lose some.
We were wanting to get away from people anyway. I
Yeah,
guess.
I mean, more or
it
less.
was,
Jeez.
it was frontier times. I mean,
Whoops. Gotta be more careful with the kids out here, huh?
Yep. So Bill was raised by coyotes.
oh,
That
goodness.
the mom coyote found him and decided to raise him as their own. And so he grew up all the way to like the age of 10 or 11 being raised by coyotes.
Unbelievable. Wow.
When one day he came across a man in the desert and he decided to attack the man as coyotes do.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
And
He's a beastie.
the man stopped and asked him, like, what are you doing? To which Bill replied, because apparently Bill knew how to speak. He goes, I'm a coyote. And the man then proceeds to explain to Bill that he's not a coyote, which then ends Bill's stay with coyotes and he goes to live with this guy.
Oh.
Wow.
Then
Okay.
one day when Bill is just kind of wandering around, he discovers a mountain lion that he thought would be a good idea to use as what we now call mounts, because he was kind of getting tired of walking around. And so he leaps on top of this mountain lion, wrestles it to the ground, and then basically plays a game of uncle with it until it agrees to let him ride it.
Oh my gosh.
So Bill is riding this mountain lion around when he encounters a group of men chasing a herd of cattle. These men are not cowboys. Cowboys hadn't been invented yet. Bill hadn't invented them yet. This is kind of his theme.
Oh.
Okay.
So these men are just running around on foot trying to grab these runaway cattle. Bill then finds a 6-foot-long rattlesnake, which he ties into a loop and then uses it to lasso the cattle, which simultaneously invents the lariat. I can't think of what the technical term for a lasso is. It's a lariat.
Lariats.
I believe it's called a lariat. So he invented that and invented the lassoing of cattle at the same time.
Holy cow.
Once they gathered up all the cattle, they realized that they were very bored and didn't know what else to do with them. So Bill said, let's take them to Kansas and exchange them for money, which then led to the invention of the cattle drive.
Oh, I hope he got a patent.
He didn't. But then they didn't have anything to ride the cattle to. So he said, like, why are you doing this on foot? And they said, well, there is this animal, and they point over to a horse. Now, this horse is known as Widowmaker.
Oh.
Widowmaker earned its name because it liked to kill people that ride it. And it also, apparently, its favorite meal was dynamite.
Oh.
Sounds delicious.
Lit or unlit.
Spicy.
Lit or unlit.
Yeah.
Yummy.
So Bill jumps on top of Widowmaker and, rides them into submission.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. The way you see cowboys do. Yeah. Hold on now. Whoa.
He broke Widowmaker.
Broke him. Yeah,
Broke
that's the horsey term.
And it was-
scientific.
So Bill got Widowmaker. He now has his horse, and he's on his way to driving these cattle to Kansas when he comes across a woman riding a giant 9-foot catfish
Yep.
down the Rio Grande River.
9-foot catfish.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This guy's story is way more wild than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow.
And so from this, I'll pass it over to Bailey for a minute. Bailey, who was this weird lady riding a 9-foot-long catfish?
Her name was Slue-Foot Sue. I'm so glad I got that right the first time.
Good job. Yeah. Oh, she was.
I've been saying Slue-Foot Stew for like 2 weeks, guys.
FSF for short.
Yeah. So, yeah, her story begins after Bill saw her riding her trusty catfish on the Rio Grande River. So she was actually wearing a leather skirt with fringe, a big old belt, and tied it all together. The story goes. So, like a big old belt buckle. Yeah, big belt buckle. Yeah. So she carried a lasso on her big old belt of hers. And then she also wore buckles on her boots with spurs that she would actually kick into the catfish, which I'm still up in the air on how I feel about spurs. But anyway. But most importantly, she actually had what we call in the South a holler. For y'all up north, that is a yell.
Oh.
That could actually be heard for 500 miles.
Ooh, that's quite a yell. Sorry. Holler.
Holla.
Holla.
Holler. Holler.
Holler.
Holler.
There's
Holler.
an hard R.
Hmm.
Holler.
Yep. That came back to bite me, didn't it?
Welcome to the show.
The gods were not impressed. The Cold of Lore gods were not impressed. But so it could be heard for 500 miles away, but claims say that it was at least 400 miles in or out on the 500, but at least 400.
Okay. At least 400.
At least 400
Yeah.
miles. Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. It's fine.
What's 100 miles or so?
So Bill saw her coming down the river on the catfish, and he was actually watching from behind a rock with Widowmaker. And he was and when he saw Slue-Foot Sue, she passed him and he called out to her and she yelled because he was like, "Hey, woman," or like, hey, or turn around. I think it was turn around because she goes, "What for?" And she like doesn't even turn her head at him. She's just like, "What? What do you want? Like, I've got stuff to do."
I'm riding a fish right now.
Yeah, I'm
busy.
riding a fish. I've got things I'm doing.
Can't
Like,
be bothered.
cannot be bothered. I mean, if you're riding a catfish down the river, can't be bothered.
Yeah.
So Pecos Bill immediately wanted to meet her after this because he is like, "Oh my gosh, this woman's like crazy." Like,
I mean, it's not often you find a woman riding a giant catfish.
yeah,
It seems like somebody you should at bare minimum talk to.
yeah,
It seems
Yeah.
like an odd experience to see, even for somebody like him.
mhm.
Yeah, I mean, that's a conversation starter.
Yeah, it certainly is.
So,
yeah.
about your giant catfish.
Yeah. Where did this come from?
That's peacocking.
Although there is like a giant.
I don't, you know what? I think there's a certain point at which it's no longer peacocking. I mean, if your dick is legitimately 3 foot long, that's not peacocking. That's just fact. She's riding a 9 foot long catfish. If you can, you should.
There are catfishes out there that are like apex predators.
Oh yeah,
They can get so big.
there are catfish that are 9 foot long. They're
Yeah.
just not in Texas.
We hope.
And not being
probably.
Yeah.
rowed across the river.
Yeah.
Probably.
I can't confirm that one. But anyway,
So he immediately had to meet her. And she actually, when she turned around to face him, she actually spit up water into his face.
just like a catfish.
Just like a catfish.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Although I don't know that I've ever actually heard of a catfish spitting water, but for some reason,
yeah.
I know that's like an old stereotype that was in
Oh
stuff.
yeah. And you see that in like water fountains and stuff like that.
Mhm.
If they have the shape of the fish. there's-
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. Maybe that's where that came from.
Maybe.
Was from the depiction in the fountain. But I've seen that catfish spitting water thing in a bunch of old timey like cartoons and stuff. And it's like the ostrich burying its head in the sand. Where the hell did that come from?
Right.
Nobody has ever seen an ostrich with its head in the ground. Not one time in history. Anyway,
So they would introduce themselves. And she actually, when she went to shake his hand, she shook his hand so hard that it rattled his whole body.
Whoa.
So like this is a strong woman.
She rattled Pecos
like
Bill.
she is a bad bitch. She
so let's
has
tie
earned the
this
title.
up. She can ride bigger animals into submission. She's got a holler that goes 300 miles, and she's got
400, at least 400.
400 miles, and she's got a hell of a grip.
Yup.
Yeah, I can see what he saw in her.
There was
This is gonna
signs.
bruise, but it's gonna be fun.
So they would proceed to introduce themselves, and Bill would proceed to tell her that he wanted to marry her just flat out. So
Just immediately.
just
enamored.
immediately. And he would go about this by saying, "I was raised by coyotes, I worked with reformed outlaws, and I am the greatest cowboy in the world." I mean, how are you going to say no?
How could you say no?
Exactly. So she told him she'd never heard of him. Atta girl. Atta girl.
That
You
is the move. If I don't care who it is, if it's anybody that tries to impress you by their title, just saying like, "I've never heard of you."
No, even if you have, just
Yeah.
lie.
Instant
Lie.
balloon popper.
Lie your butt off.
Bring it back down to earth.
Yep.
And for the flip side of that, if you have a title, that's great. Don't introduce yourself with it.
Yeah, no. Be a person.
That title is not the most important thing about you.
Be a person. Just
Yeah. Be
Yeah.
you.
yeah, you're good enough.
Unless you suck, then be a better version of you.
Life lessons.
You don't have to be that better version. Just fake it.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah,
That's what my mom always told me. You fake it till you make it.
That's actually a principle in like mental health. Is like sometimes if you've got nothing else, just fake it until the next day because you
There
know
you
that the
go.
next day will be better.
Yep.
Anyway.
Anyway, so she told him she'd never heard of him, but she might marry him if he bought her a big old bustle and he let her ride his white horse, Lightning, Widowmaker.
Also, no, yeah, Lightning and Widow, they have the same name.
Oh.
I'm willing to bet that what it was supposed to be was that it was Widowmaker before Bill and Lightning afterward.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Story has a lot of the trademarks of like mythology.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah. Well,
holy cow.
I'll tell you how that probably came about.
Okay.
So Pecos Bill would quickly, very quickly, he was fast as lightning, would ride into town and he would go buy Slue-Foot Sue the most beautiful gown and bustle he could find. And with the spurs still on the boots, they were married.
With the spurs still on the boots.
Yep.
I love it.
So for those of you who don't know, a bustle.
Thank you. Yeah. That's going to be my next question.
You're gonna find a picture.
We were
of
just
it.
waiting for our moment.
You're gonna find a picture of a bustle right here.
So a bustle is actually padded. It's a padded undergarment that's used to add fullness or support drapery at the back of a dress. It was primarily used in the 19th century or the mid to late, and it's usually worn underneath of the skirt.
It's a skirt bubble. I've seen those before.
Yeah,
A lot of the time now, especially with like wedding dresses, you'll find that they actually put the bustle on top of the dress now for trains.
Okay.
So you'll like see the layers of it coming down.
Yeah, it's probably meant to help keep the rim of it out of the mud and stuff, right?
Yeah, just help
keep
to
it lifted up.
yeah,
That
keep
makes
it keep it a lot more like utilitarian.
Neat.
Like,
Okay.
and it's not getting caught on stuff and like because I mean if you're walking in the street and the train of your dress gets caught on a carriage, you gonna die.
Oh,
It just has the bad side effect of
Yeah.
making the woman look like she has 6 sandbags strapped.
Yeah. Plus, a coyote or a Pecos Bill could come along and if they
Just
catch
grab
the end
you.
of that, skirt, it gives them something
Just
to hold
grab
on to.
Well, there's also more problems with the bustle that we're gonna get into.
Uh-oh.
So directly after their nuptials, so they haven't even been married for a minute.
Okay.
Slue-Foot Sue made a beeline to Lightning, Pecos Bill's stallion.
Huh.
And Peso then decided, Pecos, sorry. I've probably said it 4 times now. Sorry, guys. We're just going to call him Bill now.
That's my solution to stuff
Yeah,
like
we're
this.
just going to, I tried, I failed, it's fine. Like, I at least attempted, okay?
Yeah.
But so she would make a beeline to Bill's stallion. And Bill then decided to warn her of 2 things. Number 1, he was a buckaroo. He bucks people off. And number 2, Bill is the only one who has ever ridden him.
Huh.
This is a big, big problem.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
First of all, that's the first time I've ever heard the definition of buckaroo. Thank you. I learned a new term today.
Rambunctious, bucks off and whatnot.
That's why they call it a buckaroo. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it made sense to me when I first read it. Not going to lie to you. I was like, light bulb moment.
Well, to be fair to both of you, how much time have you actually dedicated? How much thought have you dedicated to the definition of the word buckaroo?
No more than
He's
it
a
took
real
me to call a
buckaroo.
child a buckaroo.
And now you want, but okay, so
Yeah. I've just been like, come here, buckaroo. You know? And they're
yeah.
like, yeah, kid thing. Yeah. Yeah, let's go. Let's move on. I don't know.
Where's Bill?
Where's Bill?
So Slue-Foot Sue, would climb up onto Lightning. But she had forgotten that this bustle was very, very, very bouncy. It was a bouncing bustle. So when she got up onto Lightning, Widowmaker, as soon as she sat down on the saddle, she bounced right off of Lightning into the air.
Oh, my.
It was a bouncy bustle.
Bounce. That's a very bouncy bustle on a
I mean, I would
buckaroo.
have to wonder what that bustle was made of.
Something bouncy.
And she would just bounce higher and higher and higher.
Oh,
and
no.
so high, some thought she might even hit the moon. But as Newton's law states, everything that comes up must come down one way or the other.
Gypsy agrees.
Yes. She's like,
Demonstration.
Yep.
she's like, Mum's not here. She can't take my bone. And Sue eventually started to have a little bit of a lower bounce with the bustle. That was until she hit a rock rather hard, which started the whole process all over again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. She would holler out, "Do something down there." And of course, it was heard for 4,000, maybe 5,000
Oh,
miles.
right.
Or 500.
Because of the
Yes.
big holler.
Yes.
That's what she said.
Yes.
And Bill would watch her bounce a few more times before he finally grabbed his trusty lasso.
Which was a snake.
Yep. Listen,
Is this a metaphor? Is this a metaphor?
I don't think so. So then Bill would begin to work on lassoing all the storm clouds from across the state.
What?
And he would actually build a ceiling in the sky that would that he would continually, with all his might, lower down and down and down until he brought his bride from the clouds. Sue came back down immediately, and she got the bustle off and probably stomped on it a few times.
Well, careful about that because you might get bounced again.
I mean, maybe.
It's like flubber.
Yeah. Yeah.
no.
And she would put back on her regular clothes, and as the story goes, she climbed onto Lightning and rode circles around Bill ever since.
Ray circles around him on Lightning after he was so extra about lassoing those clouds. Like he could have just lassoed her.
Yeah, we're just gonna.
And he's like, I'll just rearrange the sky. Why not?
He wanted
man
to
is a
show
god.
off.
Yeah.
This story has a lot of
yeah.
a lot of different endings.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
we're gonna talk about another one.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about
but
another
just know that there's like 4 or 5.
There's
Wow.
for everyone. There's 3 more. Just so
Okay.
you know.
yeah,
Wow.
there's a lot.
So another ending that literally made me almost cry.
Uh-oh.
So his poor bride is bouncing up into the sky, and she's bouncing for a very, very, very long time. And she missed dinner, and she missed breakfast. And by the time she was getting ready to miss lunch, everyone started thinking about, well, maybe she's going to starve. We wouldn't want her to starve to death. Poor Slue-Foot Sue. We don't. She can't starve.
Uh-oh.
And poor Bill could not bear to see his poor new bride starve to death. So he did what a man must do. We did what anyone must do.
What?
He shot his new bride out of the sky and buried her. And he never loved another woman like he loved Slue-Foot Sue.
Thank goodness.
Oh my God.
So there you go. You get a happy and a sad.
Okay. Wow.
So there's another ending where actually it is another ending, but Widowmaker was actually the cause. See, apparently Widowmaker knew that this bustle was bouncy. Don't ask me how. And he set her up, teed her up, and kicked her off, which is what caused her to start bouncing.
Oh, it was a deliberate bouncing.
And at the end of the sad ending, Widowmaker confesses
Oh, God.
everything to Bill,
Uh-huh.
and then Bill forgives him, and they ride on.
Oh, that's sweet.
Then there's another ending where Bill manages to lasso Slue-Foot Sue and brings her down. She then goes after Widowmaker, for the kick,
Uh-huh.
which Bill then defends. So Bill gets in the way between her and Widowmaker, to which she then smacks Bill so hard that he lands on his ass, causing the Grand Canyon,
Oh my gosh.
and then refuses to speak to him ever again.
Oh, my gosh.
Jeez, oh man.
That's how that got there.
Yeah. Wild. Just wild.
So either way, so I'll pick back up with Bill's story. I think there is yet another ending where Slue-Foot Sue stays bouncing on the moon perpetually. That's just where her story ends. She's up there bouncing.
She's up there bouncing on the moon.
But what happens is, and no matter what the ending is, this is how Bill's story concludes. Bill, after Slue-Foot Sue, gets married several times and again, but never, always just kind of because it's the thing you do. One day, while he was at one of his wedding receptions, a tornado, Texas Twister, kicked up right in the middle of the party. Bill, not wanting it to ruin the party and not wanting to miss the chance, grabbed his snake lasso and lassoed the tornado. He then jumped on top of it and started to ride it until it took him up into the sky. Now, depending on which ending to Slue-Foot Sue's story you go with, if you go with the ending where she's still bouncing on the moon, he jumped the tornado because he saw the chance to ride it to the moon.
So he could
And be with her.
Sue.
And then because of that ending, every time a coyote howls at night, it howls in honor of their love because it howls at the moon.
Oh, my God.
And that's his coyote family missing him. Now, the version where she dies, Pecos Bill would howl at the moon himself every full moon in honor of her. And then once he passed away, the coyotes did it in his stead.
Okay.
That's
In
so
honor
sweet.
of him, in
Yeah.
honor of her.
So romantic
so
and or
beautiful.
tragic.
Right. And There are so many different versions of the story. I've found a couple where he actually made the Rio Grande River first before she rode down it. Another one where he made the Pecos River, which is where he ended up getting his name from. So Bill has a lot of stories tied to him that are not always expressed in all the different versions.
Yeah.
So where did he come from, including Slue-Foot Sue? The first time that he was written, it was by a guy that I have actually heard of before. His name was Edward O'Reilly, but he was more commonly known as Tex O'Reilly.
Tex O'Reilly.
Does that name sound familiar to either ring a bell or
it rings
scratch
a faint bell?
Okay. So Tex O'Reilly, he was involved in a lot of Disney's early animation stuff.
Oh, okay.
They took a lot of properties from him, and he was pretty amicable towards it. So his name's all over that old stuff.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you were to see any of the old Western cartoons from Disney back in the day, they had his name all over them. He published this story, including Slue-Foot Sue, in a Century magazine, and he claimed that it was a long-lost folklore tale. You know, he passed these off as genuine old folklore tales. There was another guy, Richard M. Dorson, who is a folklore expert, who actually discovered, pretty much, I guess, that Tex actually came up with them himself.
Oh, no kidding.
Right. As I guess he felt that, you know, he was a Texan himself. Anytime you see a picture of him, he's got this giant cowboy hat on. It's probably why he got the name Tex. I guess he just felt that the cowboy was underrepresented as part of an establishing member of America's culture. And should be represented in folklore.
Okay.
And so he created kind of this origin cowboy.
Yeah.
Pete, I've found a lot of stuff talking about this being fake folklore.
Fake folklore.
Because it was designed with the intention of, it was prematurely aged, so to speak.
Okay.
It was written under the guise of it being something older than it was.
I see.
But I get people calling it that. I understand that. But I think you also have to kind of incorporate the fact that America is a really young country.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
We, like, almost all of our stuff is either an amalgamation of a bunch of different things from other places or just stuff that we made up wholesale.
Right.
And so is it fake folklore in that it didn't develop and pass around organically? Yeah, I guess you could say so. Unlike some of the guys we're going to get into with you two.
Right.
But America kind of had to, in a lot of ways, invent its own, not history, but mythology.
Yeah. So
we have Uncle Sam, Davy Crockett, we did that with him, but also I think it's George Washington with chopping down the cherry tree.
Oh yeah,
Johnny
I cannot
Appleseed.
tell a lie.
Yeah.
Johnny Appleseed.
Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah.
So we did kind of have to invent our own lore.
Yeah. So mythology is very reflective of the culture.
Right.
And so it does make sense that as a new nation is building its own identity, because a lot of the things that went into the Pecos Bill story and the Slue-Foot Sue story were pretty iconic and important to early Americans,
and
early United States,
And also, like you said, there's elements of other
folklore. Like he sounds very much like a trickster character in mythology, because a lot of the times they're originators of certain practices or things like the Grand Canyon, or and the invention of
being raised by coyotes.
Yeah, being raised by coyotes.
You have that in Roger Kipling's The Jungle Book. Romulus and Remus. If you go back.
Oh yeah,
that.
Yep.
The story of the infant or infants being raised by wolves, or an American wolf, in this case the coyote.
Right.
That's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
that's pretty deeply ingrained in mythology.
Yeah.
So,
and we even see that with Sue. I'll just say,
yeah,
with Sue, she's got an odd association with water.
Yeah.
Spitting water out like a catfish apparently does, riding the catfish. Even, she's out of place in the sky, but like clouds are drawn in one of the stories to bring her down and
storm
stuff
clouds.
like that.
Storm clouds specifically.
Yeah. So rainy. So I wonder what. Yeah. Anyway, I was pretty interested in that, which is another kind of mythological trait. If you have a water being, then they have, weird. So it's neat. It's cool. And it does, I think it exemplifies a lot of what our American, quote unquote mythology, because it's
Sure.
considered folklore, right? At this point, there's
Folklore and mythology, I think, can be.
I think one transforms into another. That's
Yeah.
I don't know how. I'm not a
I think
I
in,
don't know how that works.
sociologist.
I think in
but
common use, though,
Yeah.
most people would equate them the same.
interchangeably.
Yeah, more or
I think
less.
that's I think that's fair to say.
So whenever we cover these kind of off topics, I like to try to give some things that are related for Pecos Bill specifically. Some other areas that you can enjoy his mythos on YouTube. There is a fantastic drawn version that has the complete story that's told by Robin Williams.
Oh
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was, and they just let him do all the voices that he wants. They let him go full ham, and it's free to listen to on YouTube. And it was so good.
That's awesome.
Cool. I'm such a Robin Williams fan that when I found that, I was like, that is fucking amazing. So there's that animated short.
It's on YouTube. You said
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
link in the description.
Yeah,
so look for
absolutely.
it there.
And
Check
then-
it out.
You can find, I believe on YouTube, we'll find, if it is there, we'll link that as well. The old Tex cartoons, Tex O'Reilly cartoons.
Mhm. That would be neat to
From
catch
old
up
Disney.
on.
I believe that at least the Pecos Bill one is on YouTube as
Cool.
well.
Okay.
Nice.
If it isn't, then I'll put a link to something else because there's a few Pecos Bill songs. I will find you something else besides the Robin Williams things, but those are the two tied in. Another way to enjoy Pecos Bill.
Neat. All right. Cool. Thank you.
So who's next?
All right. It's me.
Who do you have?
All right. My tall tale figure is John Henry.
I love John Henry, the original OG standing up against modernity.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yep. The steel driving man. And that is true. That is one of his biggest themes that we've run across. So John Henry has been talked about in story, in song. He has been in countless movies, books. My introduction to him was Tall Tales, the movie Tall Tales.
That is one.
Yep.
I was going to save that for the end
I see.
because
Yeah,
it's like
right.
a culmination. It's got all of them in it.
It does.
But if you haven't seen, it's a young adult movie put out by Disney back in the early 90s. It's got Patrick Swayze as Pecos Bill. I can't remember the others. Oh my God. Oliver Platt as Paul Bunyan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that is a fantastic movie. It is on Disney Plus. If you can high seize it, I would prefer you do that on a moral grounds, but whatever.
I sees it.
Watch it on the Yoho.
Yeah.
So John Henry has kind of like Pecos Bill, maybe even more, maybe not more so, but he has a variety to his story with, there's unifying features, of
Right,
course.
there's key
which we'll
beats.
get into. Yeah, very key beats. They're the important parts, but there are some variations, so if you've heard a version of John Henry that I don't make reference to or include, know that it exists. Drop it in the comments. So
yeah,
that
let's
I can,
some of the variations.
Yeah, that would be great to hear. Johnny Cash has a song about him telling the story of John Henry that's kind of different from others that I had heard and stuff
Nice.
like that.
I
So,
bet
Cool.
that's some good ear candy right there.
yeah, it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
pretty good song. Yeah, I definitely like it. So let's talk about the legend first because, we'll start there. John Henry is most famous for being a freed slave working on the railroad. And he was a steel driving man and went up against the steam powered drill.
Right.
So the story is that a salesman came through to where they were working on the railroad and they were going through a tunnel, and we'll talk more about the tunnel a little later. And so the salesman approached the people in charge of this operation and said that he was trying to sell this new machine. Said it could drill faster than the laborers can, and we'll talk more about what drilling is too while we're at it a little bit later. Said it could go faster for a fraction of the cost, get the job done, and will eventually replace the need for workers. So John Henry catches wind of this and decides that he is going to challenge the salesman to a competition. May have been a bet. Basically, it's going to be seeing whether or not John Henry can outpace the steam drill.
Oh.
Now, John Henry, depending on which legend you hear, is 7 feet tall, 6 feet tall, 10 feet tall. Sometimes he takes on the machine wielding a hammer, 10-pound hammer in each hand.
That's the one I always
Yeah,
heard.
yep. 2 hammers at the same time. Sometimes it was a great big hammer forged from the chains of his enslavement when he was a slave. And then he had just reforged his chains into a new hammer, and that's what he took on the machine with. And it was said, some say that they were blazing through the mountain, that he would blaze through it like fire, blazing through the mountain, and the machine got kicked into overdrive when the salesman saw that, he was losing to John Henry, who was just working faster than, sometimes it was doing the work of 4 men or of 10 men, just pounding away. And the machine got thrown into overdrive and worked so hard that it shook into pieces.
Oh.
Or exploded, either way, and had not drilled as much as John Henry had. John Henry was victorious in this competition. He raised up his hammer or hammers in victory.
Yes.
And then promptly dropped dead from a burst heart.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Yeah. This is a bit of a tragic tale.
Oh, God. It was so triumphant up until that point.
Yep.
Like, sweet victory.
Sometimes I'll go a little bit more into the hammer too, because sometimes the damn thing was 9 pounds, 14 pounds, 30 pounds. I did hear a 30-pound reference, in one of the songs or something. He was throwing 30 pounds from his hips, according to a quote by him, or from a song. I can't remember. I didn't write the citation in my notes, but it's there. So blazing through a mountain, there were descriptions of it's flashing like lightning as he's pounding on the drill and stuff like that. So let's back up now and give a little context. What is steel driving?
It's probably where they put the spike down into the dirt, isn't it?
Yes. So it's a long spike, iron spike. It looks kind of like a stake. They call it a drill a lot of the time. And so what you would do is you would pound it into the rock. And once you had gotten deep enough in there, you'd fill it with gunpowder and then blow it apart, and then have people come in with shovels, pickaxes, wheelbarrows, and clear out the rubble and stuff like that. So that's what John Henry was doing. So the imagery of blazing through a mountain kind of had me thinking he was cutting his way through this tunnel himself, and that the steam engine was just blazing away right behind him until it explodes or shatters apart and stuff. So, but I've already explained what they're really doing, and what you would need in conjunction with a hammerman, which was a steel driver. John's job was a shaker. What the shaker would do is they would, after each blow of the hammer, they're standing there holding this steel bar basically, and they would turn and shake and roll the steel thing to knock away a lot of the chips and stuff from it.
They're there while it's getting hammered.
It takes a lot of trust, the hammerman and the shaker, between the two, because shakers can lose limbs or lives pretty easily with these big old hammers.
Yeah, working on a rail line back then was hell.
It was very dangerous. A lot of people did die.
Yes.
Doing this work, especially once you came to a tunnel.
Especially people of certain ethnicities.
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately.
Because we're only, at this point, the story seems to originate in the early 1870s, so it's only about 5 years after the Civil War ended. Yeah. So it was a lot of
African Americans and Chinese.
Yeah, yep.
Chinese got hit by the railroad pretty hard.
Yeah. So it was very dangerous work, and coming upon this tunnel, there was no way of getting around the mountain, in the story, and so they had to tunnel through it. So apparently there were 1,000 men dedicated for 3 years to cutting their way through the mountain.
Oh wow!
Which was quite a job, and a dangerous one. So he needed a shaker. So more than likely, a shaker did help John Henry with this competition. It would have been the combination of the two. And because if it did happen, which it seemed pretty certain that it did, that John Henry was a real person in some capacity. The story came from somewhere.
Right.
But he probably wasn't wielding a 30-pound hammer.
Or two hammers
or 2 hammers at once. No. Yeah, that would have been pretty dangerous. But he probably was fast. They did have competitions among themselves, hammermen and stuff. And, it was kind of a way to make that hard life kind of fun.
And you know what? That 7 foot tall, that might not be an exaggeration.
Right.
It might not be, although
You get
Well-
some John Coffey
yeah,
guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we got people like that.
oh, yeah, for sure.
Yep.
But anyway, you were
Yeah.
saying.
So the hammer that was used at the time, there were 2 types of hammers that could have been used. A single jack, which is about 3 to 4 pounds with a 10-inch handle, which was wielded with one hand. Or the double jack, which I like to believe John Henry probably used because it required more experience and more skill, was a 6 to 8 pound hammer that was 36 inches at the handle. So that was, either one is lighter than the at minimum 10-pound hammer that they say John Henry was wielding.
That's like a sledgehammer.
Yeah. Yeah. They're big hammers. So that gives us
36-inch hammer, you can two-hand that pretty
Yeah.
easily. So I'd say that would be what you'd have to use. Otherwise,
Right.
you wouldn't be able to generate enough force to even
to be
Yeah.
effective with it and accurate, which you'd
at
wanna
least
be.
for for the competition's sake.
Right. So, and getting to the competition, one of the more realistic accounts that I've heard, other than, just drilling through the mountain like fire, one of the more, because we'll start getting to more towards, I'll whittle my way down to more of the origins of things. At the end of the day, they believe, or most of the stories end up saying that John Henry had drilled 14 feet into the rock. So they measured, all the drilling in feet. So he did 14 feet of drilling, and the machine had only done 9 by the time that it stopped working for whatever reason, because it didn't have a shaker it couldn't shake away the.
So ultimately, it was doing a harder fight.
Right. Yes. And the way that a steam drill worked, it worked off of a remote boiler. They'd throw coal in it, and it would work the kind of a piston to drill
There's
into
no
it.
way
So
that's
it's just
cheaper
kind of.
than a guy.
I know, that's kind of what I thought. It's like, how could it be all that coal? I guess you don't have to feed and house them and stuff, but
yeah, but you still
they
have to
weren't
have
really-
people for maintenance, to move it, to feed
Yeah.
it, to move the coal. Now that you've got that, to deal
yeah,
with.
and
Ugh.
it's like it's going to take a person anyway to keep it running if it gets clogged up by rock chips and
That's
stuff.
what I said. Yeah, maintenance.
Yeah, you're right. So, because John Henry defeated it, of course, he was doing this in a lot. Some will say it's basically to keep the people employed.
To prove that the working man still had value.
Yes, that they still had value and were better than just some, unthinking, unfeeling machine.
Goddamn right, John.
I thought you might support that.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Straight down to the cockles.
There's also variations in the way that he died. Some say that he died right there on the spot, of course, from a burst heart or from exhaustion. It also, and this may be more likely, that he died later. That the exertion might have been have just exhausted him, and a few days later he died. Or there's a disease called, I think it's celiac, which a lot of people working in like mining and rail, it comes from all the kicked up dust and stuff. It gets into your lungs and then eventually exhausts and kills you. And so there's variations on what may have happened, but all the stories end with his death.
I don't like, but I think just the amount of force you'd have to do. I could see him just dropping over dead from exhaustion.
Just on the spot. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of agree. It's like, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because, you have to look at what he would probably really be, right? So you're looking at John Henry, he's probably mid to late 30s, early 40s.
Possibly.
So you have to take into account that he's probably really skilled. So he's had a long time to do this. He'd have to be probably a little bit on the older side for him to garner any respect from the people to even do it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd say he's probably in his late 30s, early 40s, which, that's really early for us. Like, I'm almost there,
Right,
but
that's kind of old for the time.
especially if your entire life is slave first and then railroad worker right afterwards.
Right.
These are, slave's not really a job, but these are things in
but
your
it's
life
work.
that definitely limit your time on Earth due to physical exhaustion.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. So, there were we'll talk about a little bit about who's thought to be the real John Henry, or where the theories are, because it's all just theories. So there were several tunnels that are said to be the John Henry tunnel, but it seems to be there seems to be 2 that are the big ones. Big Bend Tunnel in West Virginia and the Lewis Tunnel which is in, I think, Virginia. Although there's said to be one in, I think, Alabama and Tennessee, stuff like that. So, okay. So the story with the Big Bend Tunnel, there was a sociologist who traced the legend of John Henry there. He kind of theorized that Big Bend was where that came from. And I didn't write down a lot about the evidence, but the tunnel was built between 1870 and 1872. Although a lot of people, he did speak to a person who claimed to be an eyewitness to the competition between John Henry and them. And he gave an account. So that's kind of why Big Bend Tunnel is thought to be one of them. Although some people don't believe that because there's no record of any steam drills having been used there. The Lewis Tunnel, however, did have record of steam drills being used. And there's a record of a man by the name of John William Henry, who was only 19 years old, 5'1", so much younger and much shorter than what you would think from, much younger, much shorter. And he was a convict who initially got arrested for shoplifting, essentially, but over the course of time and finagling and stuff. And again, this was only 5 years after the Civil War ended.
Right. So society context.
Yeah. So about 6 months later, things had been finagled enough to where he was sentenced for burglary, which was a much harsher offense, sentenced to prison. And the warden of that prison basically got on with this program with the railway company, which was leasing out prisoners for labor. And actually, from what I could tell, the warden wasn't such a bad guy. He had investigated the conditions of the laborers and thought to himself they were better than the conditions at the prison were at. And he had a problem with overcrowding and stuff like that he actually did want to renovate and fix up. And it turns out later on, I kind of believe that he had a decent heart to him because he later just was an advocate against that practice. So perhaps when he found out that it wasn't so...
Okay.
The conditions weren't really so good. It seems like he kind of changed his mind, but that's my speculation. So this John Henry is much shorter, much younger. And then the records of him stop at about 1873, which the historian who is advocating for this being the origin story, he said that was probably him dying on the railroad because there was no more. They stopped the records at about that point, and there was no record of him dying in prison or of being released. So they think that's probably what happened. And he also makes a connection because a lot of the time John Henry's resting place is said to be an unmarked grave buried in sand by a white house, and this prison had a white gatehouse to it. Now, I personally don't believe that this is the original John Henry, because if he didn't die at the prison, why was he buried there? For one thing. Another thing is not to diminish this guy's work at all, but his stature and his age doesn't it doesn't perhaps add up.
No.
His version of the story happened on a toy train set.
Yeah. That's about the nicest way to put that.
I kind of like to think that Big Bend Tunnel was the one that John Henry worked at because there was no record of steam drills.
That's what I was going to say.
Exactly. It was just a salesman who went by.
I would say if John Henry did what they said that he did, then there wouldn't be, the guy would have turned him down.
They wouldn't have trusted the steam drills. And so he did save the work. Now, again, not to diminish the work of the other John Henry, or the John Henry, could be, who knows, from Lewis Tunnel, or the guy from Tennessee or Alabama or wherever our John Henry came from. But I kind of like the idea of him having been at Big Bend Tunnel myself, because then they never used the steam drills there. So that would have been what he wanted.
Yeah. I completely agree.
That's super cool.
To this day, they say that if you go to the tunnel, whichever the tunnel it is, you can still hear John Henry hammering away.
Oh, gracious.
Yeah. Nice. So
that's
there we go.
Super cool.
Yeah.
I pulled up a picture of the tunnel. It's exactly what I thought it might look like.
It's a tunnel.
It's a tunnel.
It's a tunnel.
Oh, look at that.
They made a tunnel.
They made a tunnel.
Yeah.
You want to go visit it, babe?
Nope. No, thank you. I'm good. I don't like tunnels whatsoever. It's just something about being under the earth.
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, no,
Just
I don't
being
like it.
buried.
Just like being buried. Yeah, no, I don't like underwater either. By this time, we're already into conspiracies. Summer at sea, so and they've heard me talk about. I don't like being underwater. I don't like being in tunnels either. Although that's super cool. When you said that it might have been a 9-pound hammer, that did kind of strike me because the number 9 actually means like, and I'd verify this. It actually means like great accomplishments and like the completion of something.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. That's super cool.
It was quite an accomplishment, though. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Definitely that lesson of might and endurance and perseverance. And I love a lot of the themes that are.
It was also a cautionary tale too.
There is. And it is.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. That's a great point. He is also a cautionary tale to pace yourself.
Pride.
Oh, pride too. Yeah.
Pride,
Yeah.
pride killed him. His inability to, for lack of a better term, suffered the indignity of being replaced.
That's true. There is an argument to be made. Like, it depends on the story. You know,
it depends. I would
yeah.
say it depends on your point of view.
Yeah, it does. No, and there's a lot wrapped up in that story that's
There
pretty
is.
cool to analyze and stuff. So yeah, please, if you haven't before, do look more into John Henry. There's a lot of variation to his story and a lot to take away from it. So yeah,
It's a very human legend.
very human legend.
Yeah. Mhm.
Jerry, what do you got for us?
So I got Paul Bunyan.
Paul Bunyan.
Bunyan.
Oh, I've got a hankering for flapjacks all of a sudden.
Oh, the flapjacks. So the legend of Paul Bunyan sort of originated with lumberjacks.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Shocking.
What?
And during westward expansion, when people were moving across the United States,
Which kind of is when I think that's like what kicked all of this off.
It does seem to be, yeah, that facing the frontier, taming the wild.
So being a lumberjack's a really dangerous job.
Huh.
You can get injured
Still is.
very
yeah.
badly.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
still very dangerous. I used to do a little bit like light lumberjacking,
Oh,
and it was we had trees falling around. It was,
Ugh.
but
Ugh.
so they used to have these big camps of like lumberjacks. You'd be clearing lots of wood and forest to
just acres and acres.
for the wood and for the land, for like farmland and stuff. And so these guys used to sit around their campfires and tell stories and they started doing these like sort of that era's Chuck Norris jokes. So
Like,
Oh,
they're
really?
just telling these just awesome tall tales about this lumberjack. You ever heard of this guy? Like they especially tell it to like the greenhorns. That would
right,
come
the
to
new
camp.
guys.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, you don't know about Paul Bunyan, huh? Well, let's start his legend on the coast of Bangor, Maine.
Bangor, Maine.
That is where they believe he was born.
It's a banger of a name.
Yes. It is believed that he was carried by 5 storks
Oh.
as a baby.
He's a big baby.
Because he was so big.
Oh,
He needed to be carried by 5 storks.
big baby. Bigger than a Primark baby.
Yeah, Primark babies are regular babies, just more horrifying.
Yeah.
His parents had to milk 2 dozen cows each morning to feed him.
Wow.
That's
Oh my. That's 2 dozen.
That is an early goddamn morning.
that is 24 cows.
That is 24 cows each morning.
So how many udders is that? It's 4 udders per cow. Go.
I don't want to do math on that.
Mathing. Future Eric's got
Future
us.
Eric.
68
Yeah.
or something.
How many cow nipples is that, future Eric? He's going to love having to respond to this.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, Future Eric here. It's the middle of the night for me, and I'm here to tell you that there are 96 cow nipples that had to feed Paul Bunyan. Bailey tells you later in the episode. So, there you go. Future Eric did his thing. So glad that this joke made it into the show. Happy 4th.
Thanks, Eric. So to feed him, they had to have 10 barrels of porridge every 2 hours.
Oh,
That's what he would eat.
every 2 hours.
Every 2 hours, like, let's get the 10
What
barrels
was
of
his
porridge out.
diaper like?
Gee,
Right?
Oh no.
Oh Lord.
I didn't even think about the
Insane.
diaper.
Like, because back then, you had anal thermometers. You do that to that baby, you're likely to snap that motherfucker off because he's passing out loads of this. All I picture is Jeff Goldblum. That is one big pile of shit.
It's chaos. So his first bed was a lumber wagon pulled
Oh.
by a team of horses.
A team.
That's how they got it around.
I love some of these stories. They just go whole ham.
I know, it's so wild. It's so damn mythological.
Yeah, there's no semblance of reality to these.
I think all this is true. It's real.
It's like, I'm sold.
Feasible enough, especially the 5 storks.
His second bed, when he outgrew that one, was a raft that they put in the bay.
Oh my
So
god.
you could
Oh, I bet that was
rock him to
relaxing.
sleep in the bay water.
Oh, rock him in the water. That's
But
good.
when
Good
he
use of
rocked
physics.
it sank ships
Oh,
in the bay.
Oh no.
The waves would sink the ships.
Oh,
So they,
gosh.
we got to move to the woods. So they moved him to the woods, and that's when he got into his lumberjacking ways.
Oh man,
They
he
gave
could have
him, you
been
know-
a sailor.
Oh yeah,
Oh god.
he would have
been
been a sea
terrible.
monster.
Yeah, he would have been a
What
sea
ship
monster.
would he have been on?
Yeah,
Poseidon, god of the sea.
yeah. Poseidon would have had none of that. Just absolutely not.
So one swing of his axe could clear an acre of trees,
Oh,
on the regular.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's
That's a lot of trees in one swing.
a massive swing.
Yeah.
that is 43,560 feet worth of trees.
Thank you, Bailey.
Wow.
You're welcome.
That's
Future Eric
excellent.
didn't have to do that math. That's impressive.
You're still not off the hook for the cow nipples. It better be in there, future Eric.
There's
Oh,
96.
it'll be in there.
That's so many nipples.
It's a lot of nipples.
Yes. It's like I got caught on the nipples. I'm sorry.
Jerry got distracted.
When you see that many nipples, it's hard to ignore.
I once saw a cat with 12 nipples.
I
That's
have
a lot
nipples,
of-
Greg.
Sounds
You know
crazy,
what I mean?
doesn't
but they
it?
technically cows don't technically have
What?
nipples. They have udders.
Sounds crazy, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Ha. Ha, ha.
Paul Bunyan.
Anyway, one winter it got really cold.
You don't say.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. One winter it got really cold, and it got so cold that the geese were flying backwards.
Wow, that's cold.
Oh, they were heading north.
They were heading north, and it was just so cold. They were
Oh.
like, "Oh no,
We're
oh
going
no."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was so cold that spoken words froze solid and fell to the ground. I just see little ice cubes.
Oh my
Aw,
gosh.
And then you could fight with word bubbles.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Gypsy really likes this idea of fighting with word bubbles, guys.
Do it. So it was so cold that the snow was blue. It just turned blue because it was so cold.
Oh my gosh.
And
I love the descriptors for how cold it is.
oh yeah, I liked it too. It's like, this is neat.
My favorite so far is spoken word froze.
Yeah.
Yes, before they could even be heard, just
I just imagine them in letters.
Yeah.
Nice block letters.
like alphabet soup.
Yes.
So Paul found a baby ox. It was blue as the snow, right there in the snow.
Oh, he's got a good eye.
Yeah. He took it home and warmed it up by the fire.
Oh.
And it turns out that any creature that Paul would take care of would grow
Oh,
to very large sizes.
just from his care. From
Just being taken care of by him.
Somebody get this man an ant farm.
Yeah. Oh no. Probably feeds them. He's like, oh no, I eat a shit ton. You need to eat a shit ton
Yeah.
too.
That might be it. It's like whatever made him grow.
Right.
more.
Just
Yeah.
like a dog from Sandlot.
Yeah.
The
Hercules.
beast. Or Hercules, yeah.
Hercules.
Let's see. If you looked at Babe for 5 minutes, you could actually see him growing.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, that's how fast he was growing.
Wow.
Paul was a fucking alien.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So I like this one. Babe was so big that it took a murder of crows a whole day to fly from one tip of its horn to the other tip of its horn.
Oh my god. It's huge.
That's crazy.
Enormous.
Huge.
That's a
Jeez, oh,
state.
man, it's like Fenris from Norse mythology.
Yeah, it just keeps growing.
God.
He would eat 30 bales of hay and 1 ton of grain for lunch.
That's it?
That's it. You know? Just
Good
hay.
God.
It's like 2 fields of hay. That's a lot. That's, a lot of hay.
That's I was gonna say this ox is bad for the American economy.
Back then it was a lot of wilderness. So
Yeah.
when Paul was full grown, they say he was 63 axe handles high.
They measured him in
what?
axes.
Yes, they measured him in axe handles. For some reference, Cinderella's castle in Walt Disney World is 189 feet tall, which is about what 63 axe handles. would
That's
be.
about 63 axe handles worth of height.
Yeah.
That's a
So
big
he's-
castle.
He's
Yeah.
as tall as the castle.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the height varies by legend.
Right.
And also, just putting it out there, the distance between Babe's horns would be about 12 miles.
12 miles between
12
horns.
miles.
That's the maximum distance a crow can fly in a single day.
Wow. Huh.
That is a horny
That's
cow.
good. No,
It's an ox.
Dick. sorry.
Fuck you, bird dick.
Fuck you, bird dick. All right. So Paul had some people that he would take with him on his lumberjacking excursions.
In his front
Okay.
pocket.
Yeah.
Just kind of dangling
It's a
there
way
like
to
a pocket
travel.
protector.
That's where I'd
Yeah.
want to be. Yeah.
He had a bookkeeper named Johnny Inkslinger.
Johnny
Inkslinger.
Perfectly named for
Jesus.
Bookkeeping.
He invented the first ink pen.
Oh,
The first ink pen
Johnny
made in
Inkslinger.
America.
Yep.
You didn't know that, did you, world?
No.
No.
He also had 7 axemen that helped him. Not that he needed
Do
it.
what?
because he's a bookkeeper.
What did Paul need the axemen for? Were they fixing his food all day
not
while
sure.
he's doing the work?
Probably.
He did have a cook,
Oh, poor guy.
That cook probably committed suicide.
Seriously.
but all the axemen were named. They were all named Elmer.
Elmer.
Each one's name was Elmer.
Yeah.
So,
That shows you how
Paul-
important they were.
and Elmer.
All of them are Elmer.
How many
And-
were there again?
7.
Like the 7 little dwarfs?
Kinda.
That's kind of what I thought of, too.
The 7 Elmers.
The 7 Elmers.
Elmers.
Now, they would make a great movie.
Oh
Just
my
the
God.
7 guys that are like trying to live their day with Paul Bunyan and
Trying
his
to keep
ox.
up with him.
Yeah.
I just show them in
And-
like his pocket.
Yeah. And have conversations. They'd have such a pain in the ass time having conversations with all having the same name.
Yes.
No, not this Elmer, the other Elmer.
Yeah.
That cook's name was Sourdough Sam,
Sourdough Sam.
and they had a 10 square mile kitchen.
I freaking
10
bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that. Yeah, that makes
Jesus.
sense. 10 square miles. Absolutely.
Hmm.
It doesn't sound big enough, really.
I like to see Gordon Ramsay on there.
Oh my gosh.
You call this a kitchen?
You call this a flapjack?
It doesn't flap,
Fla-
it's junk.
His flapjacks look like the fucking ones from Uncle Buck.
Oh yeah,
Flips them with a fucking
Oh,
snow shovel.
Seriously. Yeah.
perfect.
There we go.
I need those flapjacks in my life.
Oh my god.
Like, to be honest with
God, I love that movie.
So these tales end up like telling the story of how the United States were shaped.
Okay.
So we'll go through some of those now.
Okay.
North and South Dakota were cleared of trees, so it could be farmland.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that Paul had done.
He went through and he's the one that cleared
Yeah.
the trees. Okay.
Yeah. And then, as he's walking through Minnesota, his tracks, end up being the 10,000 lakes of Minnesota.
Oh.
So
But that's another thing he shares with Pecos Bill. It's the story of how America was made.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like
Great.
literally shaping geography as
Yep.
they go.
yeah, as he was going through, Michigan, he was like, babe's thirsty. I'm going to dig a hole.
In the ground.
And that's Lake Michigan.
He just dug Lake Michigan
Yeah, that's
for a
Babe.
drinking hole. Why
Yeah.
not?
And he needed a reservoir so he could ice his log roads. So then he made Lake Superior.
That's 2 of the 5 Great Lakes so far.
It's crazy.
That is crazy. I didn't know he made lakes. I always just think
Yep.
lumberjacking
Clear
and
cutting.
flapjacks. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, one day, Babe, was carrying a water tank
Uh-huh.
up there, and he slipped. And the spillage became the Mississippi River.
Oh my gosh.
Ah.
The Mississippi was a spill.
Just dripping down. Let's see. He needed to ship some timber, so he decided to dig the Missouri River, Puget Sound, and the Columbia River, just to get the wood around.
Oh my gosh.
It's a lot of things.
Just a lot of waterways just built. Yep. Just
Me senses pattern.
Well, that's. I mean, waterways were big when
So
it came
important.
to logging back in the day because that's how they would have to float all the logs downriver to another delivery station.
Yeah.
You're right.
You wouldn't have roads and stuff to transport them and things like that. So
yeah.
Did they put them on a boat or did they just
No,
like...
they would chain them all together
Uh-huh.
and then just literally just float them down the river.
Oh my gosh.
And one of the more dangerous jobs in logging back then, as far as I understand it, was to chain all these together. You would have to go walk out across these logs while they were in the river.
Right. In the
And
water.
they would, they could turn or they could bob, and it was real easy for you to slip, fall,
Yeah.
and then you would get trapped under them like ice.
And they
Oh,
were so crowded
God.
together, there was no gap.
And
Mm.
and they would literally be like 2 miles on each end, just a flotilla of logs.
Whoa.
So it was
Oh,
quite. That's where, if you've ever seen the contest where 2 guys get on a log and they
Uh-huh.
start running it, that's where that contest came from.
Oh.
Guys would do that
for
For
a
fun.
living.
Oh,
Or
geez.
for
The
fun,
spinning
but
part.
yeah,
That's where the actual activity itself would be a contest between those guys.
Ah, good Lord.
What they would do that shit for? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's terrifying.
Computers in the workforce, man. That's kind of a
So there's actually a huge business where a lot of these logs like would sink and they would go under these icy rivers and be preserved, and the water would give them really interesting colors and patterns and stuff as they aged.
Oh.
And so there's a big market for people to go under there and pull up these sunken logs because they're perfectly cut for lumber and they were preserved in the cold water.
wow.
And some of them, like a single log, will sell for like hundreds of thousands of dollars if it's been under there for like 100+ years because of the
Wow.
different
That is
patina
gnarly.
it gives it.
Seriously.
I want one.
You want one?
Good luck.
It's fine. We'll get it.
We'll go diving for one.
There used
I'll
to
make
be,
Gypsy's
there
toy
was
box.
there was a documentary about it that I watched one time that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Interesting.
That would be cool.
yeah.
Actually, in one of those rivers, there was a log jam, and Paul Bunyan was like, I can fix this, and he just straightened the river out.
Oh gosh.
He just grabbed the river by his
Eric's
hands.
like he just picked up the logs, right? He's like, no, fuck no.
No, we're
That's
not
pussy
gonna.
shit.
So damn extra.
Oh, yeah.
Good Lord.
No, that's the easy solution. Let me show you.
just grabbed it and yanked it straight.
Like a rope.
Let's see. There's another, Paul was also involved in the Grand Canyon. It says he dragged his axe through Arizona, and that made the Grand Canyon.
Ah,
Nice.
okay. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. This is Axe. Yep.
Yellowstone Falls, which is a really tall waterfall.
Mhm.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah, he made that as a means to shower himself,
Oh,
so he wouldn't be stinky.
there you go.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Can
I
you imagine what his BO or fart would be like?
And how far it would roam.
Travel.
Yeah.
Mount St. Helens.
Miles.
It's gone. Gone.
He made Pikes Peak so he could look out over his work.
Oh,
Pikes Peak is a mountain.
Yes.
Yeah.
he made a mountain.
Made a
Good
mountain.
guess.
So
Good guess, Eric.
I was figuring this guy is a lot bigger than I thought he was going in.
It's enormous.
Tall Tale did not prepare me for this.
It was the Wisconsin River that he straightened out.
Oh my gosh, that's a big river.
Let's see. The Grand Teton Mountain Range came about when him and Babe were just playing around, playing a little rough, a little
Oh,
roughhousing.
God.
Here is a nice picture of Pikes Peak.
It's a fucking big mountain.
Yeah.
And then just
Oh.
made a mountain range by playing. Good Lord. He did a lot of geography on behalf of Babe. Yeah, a lot for that. That's love right there.
Shows you how much we love our animals.
They're
Yeah.
buddies. The Black Hills of South Dakota, that is where, when Babe died, that's where he buried him. The
Aw.
Black Hills.
The mound of his burial is the mountains. Oh,
Yeah.
Poor thing.
wow.
Yeah.
I
Babe
did-
also had a mate that Paul helped raise.
I hope it was as big as Babe.
She was.
Okay, good.
She was.
Eric had
Please
genuine
be of
worry.
equivalent size.
The logistics. Those horny oxes.
Those horny oxes, they do have horns.
So,
Aw.
modernization happened. There were chainsaws and tractors
Yeah.
and stuff. And
Ah,
it made Paul just a little less efficient. Well, it's hard to believe because it's
I was going to say
Yeah.
my ass
Yeah.
it did. Well, then again, you know what? We're in the territory where the gas and everything might actually be cheaper than providing him food.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
that's a
right.
good point. 'cause
speaking of efficiency,
he would
yeah,
require
right.
a lot of resources.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it might actually be cheaper.
That poor economy.
So he retired to Alaska, and he's still up there, I assume, because the flashes of his axe is what causes the aurora borealis.
Oh, wow.
So beautiful.
So he's up there, lumberjacking to this day, perhaps.
Just jacking it away.
Just jacking away. Why? Oh my God. Man, I had no idea how massive this guy
right.
was.
Looking at these stories, I was just like, this is incredible. It's just so silly and amazing. And I tried to imagine like a lumberjack being like, huh, really?
Yeah.
Those things happened?
Right. Yeah, just like listen to the old experienced lumberjacks like pulling your chain and you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think
Okay.
originally the tales were a little more subdued.
Right.
And then grew as
And yeah, there was actually this guy called William B. Laughhead he worked for the Red River Lumber Company.
Which explains why, did he come up with it?
He had heard the tales a little bit and then started making them like extreme.
Oh,
to,
okay.
For the lumber company as like a mascot thing.
Uh-huh.
But like, they're still just incredible. These stories are
I know.
nuts.
They are a lot bigger, taller, I should
They're a
say,
lot
than
of
I thought they
a
would
taller
be.
tail than you
Yeah.
would think.
Yeah.
Lakes and mountains forming and Grand Canyons forming. I didn't think that this stuff would be mixed up in that. I was kind of like, when with John Henry, it's like just tunneling through a mountain, in a day. Like that's that I thought was pretty big. But these guys have stretched this shit to the sky. Good Lord.
And beyond. In the
Yeah.
case of
Yeah.
Slue-Foot
Riding giant catfish for crying out loud.
9 foot long catfish.
9
with-
foot long catfish.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember thinking that was big at the time.
Yeah. No, we're getting into like Disneyland castle territory.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, that was cool. That was so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's very fitting. America does kind of have this reputation. It's not for naught. It's not like it's not, at least in somewhat true, of us being kind of loud and grandiose and big.
Yeah.
And kind of trying to be larger than life, which
Yeah.
is fair. So it only makes sense that our folklore would kind of
fit
go,
that.
Be
go
so
down
too.
that same way.
Yeah. And what I find fascinating about this is like, kind of, I was interested in this because, I really like mythology and stuff like that. And so, kind of going off of this theory of like, tall tales becoming, legend or folklore and legend and myth and stuff like that, that progression. It's like, maybe this is the beginnings of, what will later be considered ancient mythology as well. And I love that idea.
Yeah.
And we're kind of
Aw.
seeing
It could.
more or less the beginnings
It
of
could,
it
as
in a
long
new
as
way.
we keep it alive
Yeah.
until then.
and keep
So-
telling
Yeah.
these stories.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they have dropped off in popularity as time has gone on.
Yeah, that's a good point. It kind of matches the theme of a lot of the stories we've talked about today, that the new
Coming in.
and
Mhm.
perhaps, is that challenge or question of will it outdate the old, what will endure,
Right.
Yeah.
So we're just doing
So-
our small part here on Cult of Lore of trying to keep these alive till the next
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah. And next July, when Independence Day comes back around, we'd like to do this again and explore more tall tales or
Yeah.
stories centered around.
I'm sure there are definitely some more that we could look at for sure.
Yeah, I could definitely think of a few. And if you guys have any suggestions too, leave them in the comments and wait a year. See if we do it. But
Babe,
so-
you got anything to add in closing?
This was so much fun. Thank you guys so much for inviting me to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Number one. Two, like this is just fun. I had never really looked into, I had no idea who Slue-Foot Sue was when Ben had told me like, hey, this is, what we're doing. This is, who we're thinking of covering. What do you think of this one? And I was like, I don't know what to think because I've never heard of this woman. And then Pecos.
There you go.
Yes.
Did it.
Pecos Bill, really super cool. John Henry, I didn't know all that much about John Henry. I'd heard the
Yeah.
name before, and then Paul Bunyan. That is literally, quite literally and figuratively, a story that is larger than life. That was
Yeah.
awesome. That was so cool. So much to learn about American folklore as well.
Right on. Well, I guess that's a good place to leave it then. Or Jerry, do you got anything to say? You usually don't.
There was a couple hot takes I had on Paul Bunyan.
Oh, go for it. I
One
want
is
to hear
not
'em.
mine.
No.
One belongs to a guy named Justin, I think. We'll link him in the video.
Link
Oh, yes.
will be in the
Yes.
description in
Where-
reference to Paul Bunyan. Yes.
He goes through explaining that Paul Bunyan actually may fit the definition of being a kaiju.
Which is
Oh.
hilarious.
So he could be the American kaiju.
We get a kaiju. We get a kaiju.
I love that so much.
We get two. We get Paul Bunyan and Babe.
Yep. Hearing that after all of these lakes and mountains forming and stuff, that makes sense. Yeah. Waves that take out ships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mysterious powers, kind of.
Yeah.
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 I like that.
American Kaiju. So yeah, you'll find a link down there. I'm sure that's fun. I can't wait to watch that too.
Yes.
Check that out.
I had to resist.
Aw.
I saw that on my own excursion. I was like, oh, but I got to wait for Jerry.
Yeah.
And my second take is for the 40K crowd, I really saw a lot of parallels with Paul Bunyan and a Primarch.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, just in general, a Primarch.
Yeah.
Or okay, I thought you were about to get specific. I was like, who? Tell me who.
Like
No, I definitely see what you
he
mean.
shows up mysteriously. He grows
Grows to enormous
ridiculously.
size.
He's very efficient and the best at what he does. And
Oh,
Yeah,
That's-
definitely.
that was kind of a neat crossover.
That's really
maybe
cool.
he's one of the missing Primarchs. Maybe not. Maybe I did a heresy.
I'm resistant to that idea.
Yeah.
It's just a cool parallel.
There are a lot of
It is a cool-
there
yeah.
are a lot of parallels. Now that you mention that, I think you're absolutely right. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I'd never thought of it that way, but
Me
yeah,
neither.
most definitely.
Yeah.
Except for he
Huge.
was bigger.
Yeah. Bigger than a Primarch.
He must have been the Emperor's favorite.
Yeah. Pumped him full of his Ovaltine.
Mhm.
Where do the flapjacks come in?
Oh, I don't remember the flapjack.
No, I always heard him associated with flapjacks and just eating massive amounts.
It was a popular,
Probably another addition. Yeah.
popular
I was gonna blame
Food.
marketing.
Staple marketing.
Brand flapjack mix.
Ben's brain
brand,
is
but
cooking.
it was popular food for lumberjacks. There it is.
Oh, I see.
Couldn't think of the word lumberjack.
Something that they would eat. Like the flour that
It's very
they could just-
dense.
yeah.
Doesn't require much to make.
Right.
Yeah, they had maple syrup, obviously, because maple trees and
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like
the
that.
trees. Yeah.
Yummy.
That makes sense. That is.
So
where
I would
maple
imagine
syrup-
that it was just a simple filling meal that they could
Yeah.
have in the morning.
makes sense. High calorie.
Bunch of carbs
good
you're gonna
bunch.
burn off later.
Oh
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Is it wrap up stuff time?
I think so.
All right.
Eric, is there some stuff that we need to remind them of?
I'm sure that there are. So again, usually we're covering 40K or oftentimes other mythologies and stuff. So be sure to check out the channel. Cult of Lore airs every first and third Thursday. Next episode is going to be back to 40K. It's going to be a Primarch before
It is.
Yeah. Or you can also join Bailey over on Cult Talks Conspiracy
Yes.
every other Tuesday.
Yes, every other Tuesday.
Yeah.
We're doing Summer at Sea right now. I'm super, super excited, super, super terrified as well. Ty does always such an awesome job with coming up with these summer paloozas that we all do. And
Yeah.
it's so grand. I love it.
Yeah.
Very excited.
All right. Can't wait to listen. And we also have another show called Of Campbell, where we talk about Bruce Campbell and movies that he's been in. And there's always a lot of fun things to talk about over there. Good movies, bad movies, so forth and so on.
We do holiday events for Christmas, Halloween,
Yeah.
summer this year.
Yes. Yeah. Our backlog at this point is a library. Go back,
There's a lot.
listen, find something you enjoy, we hope. Let's see. Find us everywhere at Cult Talk Net. Leave reviews or comments or whatever. Just happy to have you listening, guys.
I believe we're launching a subscription service. Did I see something?
Oh,
about that?
yes. Yes, there is something like that. So you can, at this point or in the near future,
Probably by the time this airs.
probably by the time this airs, support Cult Talk Net
Financially.
if you so choose. Yeah. So there should be a link, especially if you're listening on a podcasting platform. I don't know if there's a link to it through the YouTube stuff, but either way. So yeah, we're new to that.
$3 a month or whatever it is.
I'm not sure what the details are. At this
We
point,
just
yeah.
got messages on this, so
Yeah.
we're trying to squeeze it in just in case.
Yeah.
But you can now financially support us through subscriptions. We'd appreciate it if you do. If you don't, that's fine.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
appreciate your listen anyway. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate you because heck yeah.
I hope you
Welcome
learned
to the
something.
fold. Yeah, I hope you
Yep.
did. So, because that's what we're here for. We're hoping you did too. I think that about covers it.
That
So,
sounds like a good
Yeah.
place to end it.
happy 4th of July,
That is
everybody.
the ending right there.
Yeah.
I hope everybody had a happy 4th of July.
Yeah.
We are the greatest country on earth. We always will be. Suck my dick.
If you are listening from another country, Ben's
We're
views
still
do not
better.
necessarily
Still
reflect-
better.
Just happy to be here and celebrating and everything. So
We are absolutely.
Yeah.
It's our birthday. We can be a little bitchy if we want to.
We can be there. You go.
I mean, that's what I say.
But as always, we are grateful for you guys joining us here on Cult of Lore. We will see you next time. Until then, I'm Ben.
I'm Eric.
I'm Bailey.
I'm going to go spit on a catfish.